A man sits alone in his worn-out armchair, the flicker of a TV casting shadows across the room. Then, a loud noise from across the room where Scott is trying to do his cold open without distractions. Then, out of nowhere, a spark. No warning, no flame, just a sudden, impossible heat. In minutes, he's gone, reduced to ash, while the chair beneath him barely smolders. They call it spontaneous human combustion, a mystery that creeps into the edges of our understanding, leaving behind questions that itch at the back of your mind. How does a body burn so hot, so fast, with no source, no fuel, no mercy? Now imagine the stories, hundreds of them whispered over decades. A woman found in her kitchen nothing but a pile of soot and a single unburned foot, the stove cold as stone. A farmer in his field charred to nothing while the grass around him stays green. No screams, no smoke, just silence and a lingering smell of something wrong. Scientists and investigators scramble for answers. Chemical reactions, freak accidents, but the truth slips through their fingers like ash in the wind. Tonight we're diving into the darkness, peeling back the layers of this eerie riddle. What ignites a person from the inside out? We'll see you on the inside. You are now entering the realm of the freaky deaky, an unsuspecting stop at the crossroads of fantasy and reality, where the frayed edges of make-believe seep into this cookie-cutter white picket world you've been led to believe is far from extraordinary. What you're about to hear are true stories.
Alleged true stories.
Christian, just... okay? Tales of the strange and inexplicable thought only to exist in film and folklore. Although difficult to accept, we do not know everything about this reality. About time or space, what lies beneath the ocean's depths. And try though we might, the unchanging truth remains. There are some things we legitimately cannot explain logically. Oh man, dude, I had a nightmare. Are you a nail biter?
Yeah.
Yeah, you know how when you bite sometimes too low and then it's just your fingertip hurts? Okay, I had one of those a few nights ago, right? And then I went to sleep and I had a nightmare about, is it Ed Kemper? Is a serial killer?
He's one of them.
Big dude, right? With
yeah, that's with glasses.
Yeah.
Kind of looks like you.
Yeah, something like that. So I had, except he has a pretty killer mustache.
And he's like 6'7".
Okay, so I guess there's a couple of differences for sure. Anyway, I was outside on the porch, right? I knew there was a serial killer inside our house. Somehow I just knew, right? And he opens the door and he kind of peeks out and I'm like, holy crap, it's Ed Kemper, right? But for some reason I start chasing him. But while I'm chasing him and at the same time trying to escape, I am in my nightmare. I am so aware of if anyone touches my finger, it's going to hurt like hell. And I'm so focused on that I almost forget about the serial killer. And now in my nightmare, not only is there a serial killer, but I'm also more concerned with my fingernail. I'm like, no, please don't touch me accidentally. It's going to kill me. I shouldn't have to deal with the reality stuff in a nightmare as well. You know what I mean?
What would your mom say about it?
I don't know, probably not to bite my fingers.
That'd be the first thing. I told you about this.
Oh, dude, I've been having, and you know me, I'm not really someone that dreams a lot due to the needing the green for night time and whatever. I've been having weird nightmares. Like I had one, and I actually sent this to my mom, like, this feels very dark. And it was. Pretty much I knew the world was ending, right? But it wasn't ending in like explosions or anything like that. Like it was literally just being erased, like blackness.
That is the smartest thing that could ever happen.
It's the trippiest thing to see because I was sitting there and like in the horizon, you can just see black taking over and like things just disappearing as blackness, pretty much being enveloped by this void, right? And somehow I knew in that dream that I was going to be the last one to be taken and that I'd watch every single thing in this earth disappear around me. Loved ones, friends, family, everything like that. McDonald's, who cares? Slowly closing in. And I remember thinking and even talking to people and being like, what does it feel like? Like, what's it going to feel like? You know, is it going to be quick? Am I going to be gasping for air when the black takes over? Or is it just going to be instant and I'm gone? And it closed in on me. I watched everything in the room disappear. And I knew in this one corner of a room is where everything would end. And I'm just watching it close in. And as soon as it touches me, I just wake up.
Yeah, because you can't die.
No, I did technically. The black took over, man. The void.
No, you woke up before it completely took over.
I can't say that for sure. Might have blacked it out.
I can say it for sure because you're still here. You know
it was
theory.
A dream.
And if you die in a dream, what happens?
I think that was all hogwash.
I've never died in a dream.
Really?
I've gotten close, but I wake up. I feel like you haven't seen the fantastic movie Dreamscape.
Okay.
It's not fantastic.
You didn't really sell it that well.
It's an 80s movie, but it was fascinating.
Sure.
I don't know if going back and seeing some of those not special effects would work, but
Probably not. Usually doesn't bode well. But that's fine. We're not here to talk about my nightmares and or my fingers. Okay?
do you ever, here's something for your nightmares.
Thanks.
When you go to sleep, and I'm sure you pray, and if you don't, what's wrong with you?
Okay.
Maybe you should say,
A little judgy.
well, yeah, because you should pray,
Sure.
but it should be like more positive stuff.
Okay.
Because I know you live in the Daria world.
Where's this headed? Was there something? Was that what you wanted to tell me? Was to
I
pray at
think
night?
sometimes if you focus on a little bit of positive at the end of the night, you may not psych yourself into having bad dreams.
So I don't focus on. Dude, my nights are spent researching stuff that has nothing to do with anything crazy or dark or anything like that.
I know,
so
but you spend your whole day in a negative headspace.
that's not true.
It's true more than it should be.
Sure. But at the same time, I also find ways to break out of that. Like, it's not just depression all the time. Like, I've been, like, the past couple months have been pretty crazy as far as, like, depression and, self-loathing and just ready to, for it all to end. But
let me ask you this. When I text you about, like, oh, the Kings are doing great, your first comment after that is,
for now.
yeah.
Yeah, because I've watched them since I'm like 4 years old. For now, it's always the correct answer.
You don't have to have the correct answer when it comes to the good things in life. You just enjoy a good win or a good day or a good few moments with your son and move on.
People are going to be so pissed that you're here yapping about that instead of what we're supposed to be talking about.
I'm ready.
Sure. But
Sorry,
that's why
I didn't mean to yell.
That's why the timestamps are there, everyone. Okay. And I don't really need to reiterate this for 1,000th time, but they're there for a reason. If you don't like the random banter, then just click a button. It's that simple.
Here's the thing. If people are getting upset, everybody knows about timestamps now, unless you're like 62 years old and just listening to your first podcast. Everybody knows about timestamps. Everybody knows how podcasts go.
60%
if you're upset, that's a choice you're making.
Just so you're aware, the people you're talking to, 60% of our audience is between the ages of 35 and 60.
That's the demographic everybody wants in business.
Wow. No, we're after the youth, and we swung and a miss, but it's fine. Guys, to keep this from going on forever, and you have to be careful when you're talking to Christian because he will make it go on forever. You really have to cut in there and be like, no, we're going to talk about people burning to death.
We're not talking about the Middle Ages. We're going to talk about spontaneous combustion.
I want to go so into the false fact that you just laid out, but it's fine.
We didn't burn people in the Middle Ages?
No, it wasn't as common as people make it sound like.
No,
more often than not, you're
correct.
Either stoned, not the good kind, where you lay a heavy rock on someone until they break.
No,
or you're hanged. Burning people to death was very rare.
Yeah, like kind of,
especially in the witch trials.
They had a group, like a grouping of a bunch of times it happened, and then it didn't happen for a long time, and then some people went crazy for a few weeks and did it again. That's kind of how it's gone through history. You're correct there. I agree with you.
I feel like you're twisting what I'm saying. Like there was like 5 people that were burned at the stake.
There were a lot more than that burned.
There's like 5.
I'm not just talking about just Christians though.
We're not even getting into that. I'm just saying, historically speaking, that wasn't the method of death, regardless of if you're a witch or not. That wasn't how they killed. They'd kill you, sure, equally as bad.
How did Joan of Arc die?
She was burned, right?
Yeah. How did the leader of the Knights Templar die?
Couldn't tell you.
Burned.
Okay, so you have 2 examples out of the entire population of the Middle Ages. How's that? 2 examples you gave me. It's fine. It's fine. We're not here. We're here to talk about actually, we do have a Middle Ages story, kind of, to an extent. There's one. So, yeah, I'll kind of lead in with that.
I'm sure sometime we'll come back to people getting burned at the stake. That's the type of podcast we are. Today's not that day. Today is spontaneous combustion. I'm pro-communist.
Anyway.
I am not.
Well, it sounds like you are.
Never have been.
Folks, today is a unique day for this podcast as we're not touching, well, I guess it could kind of be paranormal or however. We're going to touch on it. Before we get into any of that, leave a review wherever you're listening. And unless you're having bad thoughts right now and you don't like us, in which case, just hit the old dusty trail. That's fine. For now, we're going to be talking about spontaneous human combustion. And this was actually what's interesting about this particular topic is that I pulled it out of an episode that I was doing, which is probably a couple weeks out, about nature's revenge and the world trying to kill us. And I was like, you know what? Spontaneous human combustion was in there, but I wanted it to be its own episode. I was like, I completely forgot about it. I was like, what a crazy thing that's taking place. So we're going to go over a few of these stories that have happened. We'll probably keep them relatively brief and just kind of touch on them afterward. But more importantly, I'd like to get the listeners' opinions on these stories. So if you have ideas behind what this is, then I want to hear your thoughts. We got some smart people out there that like to share some pretty interesting perspectives, and this is an episode for you guys. So with that,
I feel like,
here we go.
Is it in bad taste that I wish I had some marshmallows for this episode?
Yes. It is in extremely poor taste, but more so...
Then I'm glad I mentioned it.
It's more so that you wouldn't even be able to toast your marshmallows, Christian. That's the crazy part about most of these, is that it's so contained that nothing else burns around it.
That's fine. I don't like toasty marshmallows. I'll just sit in the corner and eat them.
Wow. Okay. Well, that's not lazy, but we're not going to get into that. It's fine. We're going to start in the one that I was actually mentioning. It's kind of near there. Late 1400s, Milan, Italy. Are you aware of Polonus Vorstius?
I knew him.
Yeah.
In a previous life.
No, probably in this life because you're ancient, but that's fine. In the late 15th century, Milan thrummed with the energy of a Renaissance city. Its streets alive with artisans and traders under the Sforza dynasty's rule. Probably, I'm not going to, hey, for the record, none of these names are going to be pronounced.
That right.
Yeah. Yeah. Take that, everyone. You doubters. The rest of them aren't going to be right, but this one was. Anyway, Polonus Vorstius, a Dutchman whose name surfaces only in a single account, entered a tavern one evening, likely a weary traveler far from home. The air was thick with the scent of stale ale and wood smoke as he drank heavily, strong wine, unwatered, a potent brew for the time. According to, this is the one that's going to mess me up. It's fine. According to Thomas Bartholin's 1641 Historiarum.
I feel like you don't understand how to say Latin words.
Well, obviously. Historiarum Anatomicarum Rariorum, which probably means rare anatomical history.
You could have just done that.
I probably should have. But that's a weird title for a book either way, so that's probably wrong too as well. Anyway, according to that weird book, Vorstius was mid-conversation when he convulsed and flames erupted from his body. Witnesses, fellow drinkers probably, watched in mute terror as the fire consumed him, leaving a charred corpse amid overturned cups, the wine unburned beside him. How many things are going to be opened up over there? I just, for our listeners' sake.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear it, so I thought I was being quiet. I apologize.
Not even fire sound effects, which would have been much more fitting. No investigation is recorded, obviously.
Of course not.
The 1400s offered little beyond superstition to explain such horrors. Bartholin, a Danish physician, writing nearly 2 centuries later, sourced the tale from earlier chroniclers, possibly Jacobus da Varignan, Jacobus de Varahines, maybe. He suggested the wine's potency might have ignited internally, an untested theory lacking evidence of mechanism. I'm going to say that last sentence again. Medieval minds likely saw divine wrath or demonic possession. A man ablaze with no external flame was a portent. What turned Vorstius into a human torch? And why did the blaze spare the world around him? Have you heard that one?
I have not.
Either did I, right? That is old school. That is a crazy old story to be telling from the 1400s, late 1400s. But
I'm a little upset that we don't have any church records. Because that seems like something that
they would keep track of.
The priest in the area would be all over.
Maybe, but I mean, it happens in pretty much a tavern, right?
In Italy, one of the most religious places at that time.
Yeah, I don't know how many bar dwellers were leaving and being like, excuse me.
I would think the Pope would be like, this is a good time to condemn drinking in taverns.
Beautiful. What a time. What a time to be alive. Anyway, before we get into any more of these stories, do you have any thoughts on spontaneous human combustion? Do you have any theories that you think or that you've heard that you're kind of like, I think this might actually be what's happening?
I've never come across a theory that could prove that why this happens. It makes no sense.
It's just, you know what the most messed up ones are? Like the methane-based ones, where it's like something just inside their body, they happen to trigger a fart or something like that. And it's just all hell broke loose. And as someone that has occasionally triggered a fart himself, it's not something I want to fall asleep thinking about, you know?
I mean, that could work. I don't know how you get a flame up there.
People are quite creative, Christian.
I guess
I'm not
so.
sure
I've seen some of the emergency room photos or X-rays.
Satan.
Yeah. If only it was that easy. He spontaneously combusted. The devil's here. That would make a lot of sense, right?
I mean, it'd make more sense than
Satan's penis.
But
what if that's how you got set on fire?
You know what? I take it back. Valid theory. Anyway.
She stores the Satan stores the fires of hell in his loins.
We could probably just end it right there. We don't gotta. Well, I know exactly where that road takes us, and it's not pretty. Not pretty.
It's never pretty if you catch on fire.
Okie dokie. There's many ways to catch on fire after coitus, Christian. Some of them particularly in the loins. But that's fine.
The fire should be burning out by then.
You could hope. Anyway, this next one comes from 1725, Paris, France. It is the story of Nicole Millet. I'm assuming that's how you say it. It's E.T. at the end.
Yep.
Not the alien, but you get it. On February 20th, 1725, Paris shivered under a winter sky. Its streets slick with frost. Nicole Millet, wife of Jean Millet, it might be Jean, but I'm being way too flamboyant with it. It's fine. A tavern keeper near the bustling Les Halles market lived in a modest stone house. That evening, she was likely in the kitchen, perhaps stroking the hearth. Stoking the hearth. My apologies to any family that may be listening and or disappointed.
Is hearth the metaphor in this, in your way you're explaining?
In the first one, it definitely was, but now it's just a stove that we like to fancy up. In pretty much every episode at this point. I think we should honestly just change the tagline to stories about hearths, or maybe that'll be the memoir that I write at some point. It's fine. That evening, she was likely in the kitchen, perhaps stoking the hearth or preparing the next day's bread. Classic. While John lingered below, tending patrons. Known for a reserved nature, Nicole, in her late 40s, carried no hint of drama. Yet, come morning, Jean found her reduced to ash on the kitchen floor, only her skull and a few finger bones spared. Wooden utensils, a chair, and a straw mat stood untouched nearby. The air heavy with the stench of burnt flesh. Gross.
Bacon.
The Paris police arrested Jean, suspecting murder by fire, a common charge in domestic deaths. Wow. Surgeon Jean Astruc, different Jean, I should say. It is France after all. I'm pretty sure most of these people are going to be named Jean, and that's fine.
Isn't John one of the most popular names ever?
It may be Jean, but they probably pronounce it Jean, right?
It's Jean in French.
Yeah. Oh, someone is pretentious with his French. It's fine. Anyway, Surgeon Jean Astruc, called to testify, examined the scene and noted the fire's precision. No soot on the walls, no damage beyond Nicole's form. Cremation experts later estimated temperatures at 1600 degrees Fahrenheit were needed, yet the surroundings defied such heat. Astruc's findings, published in a 1725 report, cleared Jean, suggesting an act of God. Poor Nicole. Rumors of Nicole's drinking fueled theories. Had alcohol turned her body flammable? No evidence supported this. Her habits were unremarkable. The case faded, unresolved.
So, was John her husband?
I believe so, yes.
Okay.
I've completely forgot the story that I just read, but yes, I believe it was.
Okay, John was her husband. She burned up inside this house. No scorch marks.
Mm-hmm. All that was left was a skull and a few finger bones.
John murdered her.
Yeah, that's what they thought
her.
too. Yeah, that's what they thought too.
Okay. But
wooden spoon untouched. Explain that, Christian.
No, here's the problem with that, though.
Okay. He could have just put the spoon there after he burned her. You're right.
It's most people can't get that temperature of a fire.
That is the interesting part about these stories, is how extremely hot it is. How hot does it have to be to literally burn you down to ash?
Yeah. Your regular fire isn't usually that hot.
No.
Not even close, from my understanding. Not that I've taken temperatures, but...
Yeah, you can often find Christian at a bonfire with a thermometer standing remarkably close to the flame for science and everything, but that's neither here nor there.
Sometimes you got to take your temperature when you're outside.
Sometimes you just got to do it, Christian. You're absolutely right.
Stick it in there and turn your rear toward the fire, and then tell Mama, I got a fever. I can't go to school.
What?
Yeah. So yeah, now we got that out of the way.
I was not expecting that. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Got a few singers with the boy. All right. This next one, we'll take it now to Countess Cornelia Zangari de Bandi.
Are we still in Italy?
We are. It's actually 1745 in Cesena. Probably said that wrong. Apologies to my Italian brethren and heritage. Oopsie daisy. April 4th in 1745 cast a soft spring glow over Cesena. Cesena. Is that better? That sounded more like it.
Sounded like somebody attempting it.
Cesena. Come on, man. That's authentic.
Sounds like a white guy trying to...
Well, it is a white guy. Also, you kind of got to watch your mouth a little bit because I'm Italian. So I can say the word, Christian, all right? I can say the word however I want to say the word because I'm Italian, you know? Just like you could choose to say certain words because you're partially black.
I can't say those words.
Okay. Well, you're really going to take this podcast to the top when you start dropping some of those words, you know?
Bella?
Yeah, like that.
Okay.
But I'm the white one. Sure, Christian. It's fine. Anyway, a Countess Cornelia Zangari de Bandi, a 62-year-old widow of noble lineage, spent her evening in her ancestral villa. I said villa instead of villa.
It's not Bob.
It's not Bob.
Villa.
Bob Villa.
You remember that guy, Bob Villa?
I'm pretty sure it was Villa.
I'm pretty sure on his commercials after.
I'd say Bob Villa?
I feel like it.
I mean, I was young when those commercials were out, but I'm pretty sure I called him Bob Villa.
I never even watched the show. So listeners, you tell us.
Bob Zilla. Anyway, Bob Villa. God, get a load of this guy, huh? Anyway. I'm wrong. Watch me. I'm like, just check this guy out with his Bob Villa and my definitely 100% honky Bob Villa. Anyway, known for piety and a taste for brandy, she dined with her maid Maria, really laying into that, retired early, complaining of weariness. She'd been melancholy since her husband's death, you see, her life a shadow of its former grandeur. Clad in a nightgown, she doused the fireplace and climbed into bed. By morning, Maria entered to find a pile of ashes where Cornelia had lain, her legs below the knees intact in stockings jutting from the ruin. A greasy soot coated the ceiling, the air oily, this is disgusting, yet the bed bore only faint singes, the room otherwise pristine. Magistrate Marco Antonio Bianici.
You know what? You sound like the guys from Inglourious Bastards.
Yeah.
When they're
Arriba Derci. Yeah.
That's what I was like. Why does he sound so familiar?
Brad Pitt. Only way you compare me to Brad Pitt. Magistrate Marco Antonio Bianchini and physician Giuseppe Bianchini investigated. The report preserved in a 1745 letter to the Royal Society. No lamp or ember was found. The fireplace was cold. A greasy residue suggested vaporized fat, but ignition remained a mystery. Theories included brandy fumes catching a spark despite no flame or a buildup of bodily gases. Gross. A notion unproven then and now. The term spontaneous human combustion emerged here, coined by the Bianchinis. Kind of gross that they said the air was heavy and it was probably like residue. Can you imagine walking to a place after some lady burned from the inside out and just be like, it's a little thick in here. You're like breathing in someone's essence. Gross.
They're gone, Scott. They're gone.
The smell remains, I'm sure.
Obviously.
You know? Yeah. Just oily, like oily walls kind of, you know, it's just gross for someone that carries hand sanitizer everywhere, you know?
It's basically like somewhat burned human body cells floating in the air.
Oh, I take it back. It sounds great.
Yeah.
Sounds beautiful.
Probably could taste it if you licked it.
I'm sure you would.
I would not. That's gross.
Ew, gross. I don't have much to add to that outside of the fact that the name's really fun to pronounce. We should probably move on to a Florida story in Mary Reeser.
Of course, it's a Florida story.
Well, a little judgmental there, Christian.
No, Florida always has crazy stories.
That is true.
1951.
July 1st, 1951. St. Petersburg, Florida. Simmered in the summer heat. The Gulf's humidity cloaking 1200 Cherry Street. Mary Hardy Reeser, a 67-year-old woman, spent her day in her modern apartment restless. She'd moved from Columbia, Pennsylvania after her husband's death, relying on her physician son, Richard. That afternoon, around 4:30 p.m., she returned home visibly upset. Her plans to winter up north had faltered.
Because that just sounds dumb.
That
you winter in Florida.
You usually do the opposite of what winter's doing. You call the shots, all right? It's 4D chess with nature. Her plans to winter up north had faltered. Her daughter-in-law visited at 5 p.m., staying briefly, then Richard arrived at 8 p.m. Mary, in a rayon nightgown and black satin slippers. Oh, yeah.
With Dick.
Excuse me?
Richard.
Oh, okay. Anywho, admitted to taking 2 Seconal tablets. Do you know what that is? Is that like a sleep thing?
Probably like...
Was she in the dope?
I mean, it's only 2, so not hard.
That's all right then. Good on you, Mary. Anyway, planning 2 more. Oh, oopsie. She smoked a cigarette as Dick left. By 8 a.m., landlady Pansy Carpenter found the doorknob hot.
Those names back then. Seconal is a barbiturate. So yeah, it's like a sleeping pill.
Sometimes you know. Sometimes you hear it and you're like, yeah.
It was the 50s.
It was the 50s.
All them suburban housewives were cracked out.
Hell yeah. Anyway, inside. So we have landlady Pansy found the doorknob hot, summoning help. Inside, Reeser's armchair held Ash, her left foot in a slipper, a fragment of spine, and a skull, shrunken, reports claimed, to a teacup size.
So Beetlejuice was there.
Pretty much. Police Chief J.R. Reichart led the investigation, joined by the FBI and anthropologist Wilton Krogman, as well as the St. Petersburg shaman. Just kidding, he wasn't there. The fire hit 1600 degrees Fahrenheit, melting bone, yet spared the room. Newspapers lay uncharred, walls unmarked below 4 feet. The FBI's July 31st report blamed a cigarette igniting her gown, her 170 pounds fueling a wick effect, which we'll talk more about later, as fat burned slowly. Krugman disputed the shrunken skull. Skulls explode, not shrink, he argued. It might have been charred neck muscle mistaken for bone.
That makes more sense to me.
Coroner Ed Silk's claim of a tiny skull remains contested, unverified by further study. No accelerants were found, yet the heat defied logic. So what were you saying? You think the tiny skull was just a piece of her neck?
You can't shrink a skull.
Can't you?
I mean,
we're talking about like African shamanism or something like that.
I'm not sure
but isn't that something that
I'm not sure that, to me, in that case, it would be like you pull the skull out, then you could shrink it.
Do you just think they're all like arts and crafts?
Possibly, or some kind of religious thing for whatever group of people shrinks heads. I don't know.
Yeah, whatever floats your boat, honestly. But so you think that it was just a piece of her neck that was sitting there and they thought it was a skull?
I don't think it was the skull. I don't know what it could have been. I think the skull was probably...
neck's down is the neck, so we could just go with that.
Or just, maybe there's just a part of a bone there from the skull. But to me, if the rest of the stuff burnt away, then the skull bones could have burnt away, and whatever's left is just whatever left.
And this one dude was like, skulls don't shrink, they explode.
Right.
Which is kind of interesting to think about. Never thought that would be something that I spend time pondering on, but sure.
I would have never thought I would have spent time on the shrunken head thing, because I haven't really thought about how creepy that was since I was a kid.
Right. You've heard that story though, right? That's one of the more common ones.
I think I've seen pictures of...
It was probably on one of the shows you used to watch.
In Search of maybe or something back then when I was a kid and unsupervised. But
I know I've heard it a couple times in like different podcasts. I've heard people talking about...
But you could take the skull out and probably make the face shrink down, because it's just hide. They shrink down other things that they kill and make clothing out of them. I'm not an expert on. Are we waiting until later to hear about the wick effect, or are you telling us?
Yeah, it's at the end. I got a couple more of these, and then I actually have a ton more of these. I should probably just read through them, and then we can
discuss.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, and like I said, most of these are relatively short. I didn't go super in-depth with any of the stories. I really more or less just wanted to play around with the thought behind what that could possibly be, because I am clueless and I need everyone else's opinions. Yeah, so that one that we just touched on, Mary Reeser, that is a fairly popular story. I feel like I've heard that a ton of times, mainly through podcasts and stuff like that. More popularized just because of the shrunken head aspect, that people are like, oh, so that's probably the one that people gravitate to the most. But we're going to talk about a fellow named Dr. J. Irving Bentley.
Dr. J?
Oh, yeah.
The basketball player?
That's the one and only. Anyway, December 5th, 1966, dawned icy in Coudersport, probably not Coudersport, Pennsylvania. Coudersport sounds like 70s porn film, and that's not what we do here. Okay.
Wasn't there like a character on a TV show in the 80s named Cooter? Was it Dukes of Hazzard, BJ and the Bear? I don't remember.
Asking the wrong guy, but that's okay.
I'm asking the audience.
That's a little better. Anywho, the town was a rural speck 200 miles from Pittsburgh. Dr. J. Irving Bentley, 92, a retired physician, lived alone in a weathered house, widowed and reclusive. That morning, he rose early. Neighbors saw chimney smoke, likely sipping tea or puffing his pipe, a lifelong habit. Clad in a bathrobe, he shuffled with his walker, his frailty stark. Around 9 a.m., he entered his bathroom, perhaps to bathe, or to drop a greasy...
Stop. What is wrong with you? Nobody wants to hear that.
Oh, God. It's...
Then we have a couple people out there that are like, we'd rather hear that than religion.
Yeah, there's those people, sure. Or just people that get grossed out. It's fine. But I'm just saying, like,
stop.
It's fine.
Keep going with the spontaneous.
Yeah, maybe he was just taking a bath. Well, hours later, meter reader Don Gosnell smelled smoke and found ashes beneath a hole in the floor. Bentley's leg burned at the knee beside his walker's melted tips.
How did he find something burned beneath the floor?
We touch on it briefly.
Okay.
I hope. Anyway, the house stood intact, no walls charred, no windows cracked. Fire Chief Fred Graham and Coroner Ernest Mosier investigated.
We back in France?
It was probably just Mosier, but I wanted to spice it up a little bit. Sue me, all right? The hole, 18 inches wide, suggested intense heat, yet the fire spared all. Bentley's, I don't even want to know where you're wanting to go with that, but it sounds disgusting, Christian.
It was.
Okay. Bentley's pipe sparked a theory. Embers igniting his robe. Fat fueling a slow burn. Once again, the wick effect was cited, though the speed, hours, not days, strained it. No other ignition surfaced. His stove was cold. Why did this quiet man's end carve a crater? He had to leave his home to whisper of his absence.
That's very dramatic.
Thank you. I was trying to make it that. Interesting. Old man with a walker.
And a pipe.
Going to drop a deuce. Hole burns in the floor. He's consumed, except for, the other bits. I don't know, man. Each of these stories is so out there and beyond my limited comprehension. I literally have zero explanations for any of these. But it's one of those things, like when I first heard this ever happened, I thought it was made up. I was like, okay, well, people don't just explode. Surely people don't just catch on fire and burn to a crisp and then are reduced to ash in their kitchen and or bathroom. Not the place you want that to happen, but Taco Bell could be a possible explanation. And for this one, I just don't get it, man. I don't get it.
It can't be. What year are we talking?
That was 66, right?
Yeah, I don't think Taco Bell was around then.
Was that the 80s? 90s?
I feel like it was 70s or 80s. I feel like Del Taco was around before Taco Bell.
Okay, well, you can feel that way, but being factual is what we're all about here on this podcast, Christian. Okay, we don't operate in our feelings.
One of my first jobs was at Del Taco, and I feel like I know the history, but it's been a long time. I'm pro-communist. I'm not 18 anymore. You're only communist in between 18 and 21, maybe 22.
Yeah, I guess that kind of checks out. Just a little bit. I'll give you that one, Christian, when you're trying to fight the power and whatnot. Anyway, I'm going to get in. Like I said, I'm going to ramble off a few of these, then we'll touch on it.
I'm trying to be quiet.
And I'm trying to focus. It's not working all that well. Apologies.
Just wait till the next episode when I'm like, have to explain everything to you because you're not focusing.
He's going to be like, or I'm just not going to understand. And then at the end of your next, what do you think? I'd be like, damn it. Anyway, this next one, George Mott, Crown Point, New York, 1986. 86 brought a chill to Crown Point, New York, near Lake Champlain's edge. George Mott, 58, a retired firefighter, ironically, lived alone in a ranch house, a widower battling alcoholism. A lot of widowers seem to... Maybe that's the theory we need to focus on. Old people that have lost the love of their lives.
Sometimes the heart is aflame with
There's a poem in there somewhere.
With the yearning of Betsy.
Starting to sound like an STD. It's fine. A widower battling alcoholism. That evening, he settled in with a bottle. Canadian Club whiskey, no doubt. His usual. And the TV tuned in to, get this, The Twilight Zone at 10 p.m.
That's what I would have been doing.
Neighbors saw its glow through his window, a ritual since his wife's death. A smoker, he kept cigarettes close, though none burned that night. By morning, firefighters found his chair reduced to ash and springs. Mott's remains, mere fragments, bone shards and dust, amid a room barely touched, and the TV still humming. Essex County Sheriff's investigator Robert Hamill led the probe. No liquor spill, no wiring fault, just a scorched chair. Mott's smoking history suggested a cigarette ember, but the fire's focus, leaving walls and curtains intact, defied it. Once again, the wick effect was floated, fat feeding a slow blaze, though the speed puzzled experts. No accelerants were found, and the case closed unresolved. Did irony claim Mott as he watched Tales of the Uncanny, or was it a darker, quieter force?
No accelerants were found, but if we're talking wick effect, accelerants are there.
Okay.
Stay tuned.
Okie dokie. Probably do a couple more before we get into the theories. This one is Frank Baker, 1985, Vermont. The exact date was unrecorded, but Vermont's Green Mountains loomed over Frank Baker's rural home near Underhill.
I don't understand how the date couldn't be recorded if it's in the 1980s. That's basically against the law.
Laziness, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
Frank Baker also sounds like he'd be an informant of some kind.
Or a politician.
can feel it in my plums. Anyway, a 53-year-old Vietnam vet and truck driver. He'd returned from a haul, weary but wired. That evening, he lounged on his couch with a friend, likely his brother-in-law, sipping a not a sponsor, sipping a brew of some kind. A heavy smoker and drinker. Baker lit a cigarette, the TV droning a hockey game. Around 9 p.m., flames burst from his chest. Not the time for a laugh.
Well, that's what happens when you're a fan of the Buffalo Sabres.
Gross. That is a gross.
They just disappoint.
They do disappoint, and we are familiar with that. Baker lit a cigarette, the TV droning a hockey game. Around 9 p.m., flames burst from his chest, searing his flannel shirt. He rolled, shouting, as his friend doused him with the blanket. Blistered but alive, he reached a hospital where doctors labeled it partial spontaneous human combustion. And he opened this because dry mouth is taking over me. And Daddy needs his cranberry tea.
Kidney infection? Just you like cranberry?
Just enjoy a nice, refreshing beverage.
Weird. I
do like cranberry. I didn't used to like cranberry juice. Now, all about it. And cranberry is in everything, you know?
And you call me old.
You're pretty old.
Only old people like cranberries.
Okay, well, that can't be true because I enjoy it and I'm the youngest man alive. Okay?
Do you have to let it linger on this?
No formal investigation ensued. Rural Vermont lacked resources. Medics noted his habits suggesting a cigarette sparked alcohol vapors on his breath or clothes, though no flame was seen. Baker, interviewed later by the Burlington Free Press, insisted the fire started inside his torso, unburned externally. The couch bore scars, but the room stood whole. A rare survivor, Baker carried the mystery. What ignited him, and why did it relent?
The brother-in-law.
Okay, don't you think he would have said that? He would have been like, it was that guy.
What were him and the brother-in-law doing that they had to hide and lie about?
So you're telling me that him and the brother-in-law were doinking, and they made up the lie that fire shot out of his chest to cover it up?
What were they doing with the fire to begin with? What kind of...
It takes a whole new meaning to burn in love, Christian, and we're here for it.
Yeah.
Just kidding.
I don't believe that's what happened, but it's...
But he does like to fantasize.
But now you guys have that image in your head, and I do not apologize. He wasn't the type you'd pay. What the hell?
Did not expect that to actually ever be of use in an episode. But I was like, well, wait a second. Wait just a second. Oh my God. A couple episodes back, you were reading something with that in it. And as you said that, I started laughing hysterically. And you're like, what? I'm like, you don't realize it now, but the best soundbite of all time was hidden within that sentence. He wasn't the type of guy you'd peg. It's fine. Guys, we don't have to explain the jokes. They get a little crass. Apologies, all right? Anyway, Michael Faraday, and this one's in Ireland, and December 22nd, 2010, swept County Galway with a damp wind, chilling Ballybane's quiet streets. Michael Faraday, 76, a pensioner, lived alone at 17 Clairview Park, a tidy bungalow. That day, he fetched coal from his shed, seen by neighbors at noon, preparing for Christmas. A private man, he'd no family nearby, his life simple. By evening, he sat near his fireplace, its embers low, perhaps reading or dozing in his armchair. It's fine. I will not let the intrusive thoughts win. Around midnight, a smoke alarm woke neighbor Tommy Mannion, who found Faraday's body, ash and charred flesh near the hearth. Wow, classic stuff. The floor scorched, the room otherwise intact. Galway Gardaí and Coroner Dr. Ciaran, or Karen, probably Karen.
Wait, this is Irish?
Yes.
Oh, you're screwing it up really bad. I can tell.
Well, what's Ciaran? That'd be Kieran, right? That's probably Kieran.
Close enough, man. They're hard. Those are hard names.
Yeah.
Them and the Scottish.
Well, they're practically the same. Don't at me, guys.
Oh,
don't
wow.
at me.
Wow.
Don't at me. Y'all sound the same. I apologize. Hey, I'm also Irish. I can say that.
They don't sound the same, but they sound really different. They're just really hard to get them for our uneducated American ears.
Wow. Oh, okay. Oh, wow.
I'm saving you there. Move on.
No, I relent.
Oh, you're going to be a martyr.
I'm Irish. I can say these things. I was Italian earlier. I could say those things. And I'm also Irish. I can say these things. The Irish were a self-loathing group, Christian, all right?
I think you should stop trying to explain it. You're making it sound really racist.
Speaking on behalf of me and the 8 other listeners in Ireland, and they're probably like, this guy has no fucking idea.
You're sitting there like, I'm Irish. I'm like, so
well, I am. What, you want me to hide? Are you asking me to bury my heritage for this podcast, Christian?
I'm Irish too.
Okay, Christian, get out. You know, you're just very disrespectful.
I can tell you which area my family came from.
Okay, let's hear it.
County Cork.
County Cork. Okay, he's just making stuff up. No, guys, he's just making stuff up. I'm sorry. Apologies to our Irish audience. I am one of us. I am one of we.
When this episode comes out, people remind me and I'll show you some proof.
Oh, yeah. You can't drop the other words, Christian, but you can claim Irish heritage. It's fine. Whatever.
And English.
Oh, look at me. I'm cultured.
My family, the Partridge family.
God. Okay.
Came from that area.
Okay. Anyway.
I'm being totally true here.
Coroner Dr. Kieran McLaughlin, I would like to finish this.
Sorry.
Investigated. The fireplace was cold. No accelerants present. Forensic pathologist Dr. Michael Curtis ruled out external ignition, and McLaughlin, after a December 2011 inquest, declared it spontaneous human combustion. Ireland's first such ruling. Once again, the Wick effect was cited. Verity's solitary end, days before Christmas, deepened the chill. What sparked this fire, sparing the home he'd warmed? Let's get we got one more. I'll hammer through this, then we can touch on the other nonsense.
Why don't you burn through this one?
This one has gotten way out of hand. On June 2nd, 2015, in Flensburg, Germany, basked in early summer sun, its harbor park alive with strollers. An unnamed woman, about 60, sat on a bench near the water around 1 p.m. A shopping bag beside her, groceries perhaps, bread and cheese, hinting at a mundane errand. Clad in a plain cloak, she blended into the crowd unnoticed until flames erupted from her torso. Witnesses, office workers, a dog walker, screamed as she thrashed, their jackets and water bottles failing to quench the blaze. Paramedics rushed her to a hospital where she died that evening, burns covering 70% of her body.
What year is this?
This was 2015.
Okay.
So, the most recent one.
It's a political assassination.
Okay. Had to take it there.
What was her name?
I don't remember. Flensburg police. Her name was German woman. There's literally, I don't think her name was mentioned. It's just German woman. Anyway, Flensburg police in Schleswig-Holstein fire officials interviewed 20 witnesses. The bench bore faint charring, the grass untouched, no lighter, no fuel in her bag. Autopsies, hampered by damage, found no internal cause. Theories ranged from a chemical-soaked coat to a medical anomaly, all unproven. The spectacle, fire claiming her in daylight, left the Flensburg reeling. What ignited this ordinary woman under the sun's unblinking gaze?
We were joking earlier about
people dying by fire.
Gas, like gaseous things causing this.
You can call them farts, Christian.
Yeah,
we're all adults here. Only 1% of our audience is 0 to 17. I checked.
To me, it would seem like if that was the case, it wouldn't be spontaneous combustion. It would be spontaneous explosion.
Okay.
Because you have those gases contained within our body.
Yes.
They wouldn't just burn. They would explode and try to...
So you're saying it can't be farts?
I don't think it could.
Otherwise, they would have actually exploded.
And at least every once in a while. It wouldn't just be like, oh, they caught on fire or they burned to a crisp.
Classic.
They'd be like, why is that person's ears in the kitchen stuck to the wall?
Why is that person's ears in the kitchen stuck to the wall?
Spontaneous explosion. Just not scientific, just a thought. So we ruled that one out.
I'm so glad.
Okay.
Anyway, so let's get into a couple of the explanations. We'll kind of close around this. The phenomenon where a person ignites without an apparent external source, we're going to go ahead and say SHC, spontaneous human combustion, is kind of hard to say.
Yeah.
Baffled investigators and scientists for centuries, spawning a range of theories that grapple with its eerie hallmarks. Intense, localized burning, minimal damage to surroundings, and no clear ignition point. These cases, like those of Mary Reeser and Michael Faraday, defy conventional fire dynamics, leaving behind ash, bone fragments, and unanswered questions. While skepticism persists, many argue that SHC is a myth born of misinterpretation. Several hypotheses have emerged, each attempting to pierce the veil of this brooding mystery. The most compelling theories grounded in science and observation include the Wick effect, metabolic anomalies, and static electricity, though none fully unravel what's actually going on here. The Wick effect stands as the leading explanation endorsed by forensic experts like John DeHaan and embraced in official rulings such as Faraday's 2011 coroner verdict. This theory posits that human fat acts as fuel, much like oil in a lamp. Once ignited by a small external spark, say a cigarette or ember, clothing or skin splits, fat melts and the fabric wicks the flame, sustaining a slow, intense burn that can reach cremation-level heat, 1600 degrees Fahrenheit, as we mentioned earlier, while remaining contained. In experiments, Dahan incinerated pig carcasses, similar in fat contents to human. Wow, little humbling fact. Similar in fat content to human, wrapped in cloth, achieving results mirroring SHC, ash piles, intact extremities, and unburned surroundings.
Is this the pig?
This is the pig.
Okay.
And also kind of what humans do, for the most part. Critics like anthropologist Wilton Krogman counter that the speed and completeness of some cases, like Reeser's shrunken remains in hours, strain this model, and the initial spark often remains elusive.
Why would an anthropologist be talking about it? Seems like it's outside of his realm, but whatever, man.
I think everyone talks about it because it's so weird. So
that
anyone that could possibly have anything to shine on this, they'd be like, well, maybe it's this. And so this dude is saying that the wick effect offers, it says, like Reeser's shrunken remains in hours, strain this model, and the initial spark often remains elusive. The wick effect offers a tangible bridge between physics and the uncanny, though it leaves the, quote, how of ignition dangling. A less orthodox but intriguing theory points to metabolic anomalies. Internal chemical reactions gone awry. Proponents suggest that excessive alcohol consumption, as rumored in Nicole Millet's case, or ketosis, gotta warn my mom, a state where the body burns fat for energy, producing acetone, could create flammable conditions within. Acetone, a volatile compound, might accumulate in tissues, igniting spontaneously under rare circumstances. Perhaps a static shock or a digestive quirk. Historical accounts like Polonus Vorstius bursting into flames after strong wine fuel this idea, though no autopsy evidence supports it. Most victims' lifestyle, you look at Reeser with sedatives, not alcohol. They just don't align. Scientists dismiss this as speculative, noting acetone levels in humans rarely approach flammability.
Yeah, I was going to say, that one seemed kind of ridiculous.
That would be pretty high, yeah.
You'd be pretty much dead if you had that much acetone in your system.
You'd also be pretty much dead if you caught fire, so perhaps there's something there, you're right. Yet the notion of a body betraying itself, turning into its own pyre, lingers as a haunting possibility. Another hypothesis ventures into the realm of static electricity or environmental triggers. Could a buildup of static, common in dry, carpeted homes like Dr. Bentley's, ignite clothing or flammable vapors from, say, a spilled substance? In the 2015 Flensburg case, witnesses saw a woman erupt on a park bench, prompting theories of an external catalyst. A chemical on her coat, perhaps, sparked by a mundane act rubbing against the wood. Oh, yeah. This aligns with...
The church doesn't think that's mundane.
Christian, you sure do like to talk on behalf of the church.
Neither does the porn industry.
Well, yeah, two things that are one and the same.
They are not the same.
This aligns with SHC's unpredictability but falters on specificity. No residues or weather anomalies consistently appear in reports. The theory stretches thin against cases like Countess Cornelia's, where a damp bedchamber offered no such charge. Still, it evokes an unsettling image, a world where the air itself might conspire to set us ablaze. So those are, for the most part, those are like the main theories. Of those, the wick effect sounds most likely.
It kind of makes sense.
It's kind of weird. It's also
weird, but there's still a problem in some cases with the spark. In a couple of these stories, that's not a problem because we know the person was smoking. But you ever heard of ball lightning?
I have. As a matter of fact, that's one of the things that the world is trying to kill us in the episode, I think 2 weeks from now. It's somewhere around there. It's something like Nature's Revenge or whatever I called it.
I mean, I'm not saying it's ball lightning, but a similar phenomenon could be like static electricity doesn't seem right because you'd see the kids.
Can you imagine?
The kids playing in the other rooms, trying to shock each other, caught the house on fire.
Yeah, one of them burned up. That's how crazy
I wasn't
it got
going there. But,
yeah, one of the children that burned to ash.
But other forms of electricity could be caused by, I don't understand, like ball lightning or lightning in general is pretty spectacular. Not saying that lightning caused it, but maybe something in the area or in their house was able to spark proof of Satan, these fat people.
Wow. So judgmental at the end there.
I wasn't judgmental. I was just making a play on what they're saying with the wick effect.
It is pretty much that, right?
Because
fat people, sometimes they catch fire.
Well, we used to use, and in some places, I still think, in Alaska even, they still use like whale oil for fires.
Whale blubber?
I don't know if it's blubber or if it's broken down from there, but it's basically fat.
Yeah.
We've been using that for thousands of years to.
They had the answer all along.
Yeah, to light the living rooms of the old places.
Yeah.
So
I don't know, man.
So once you get going, theoretically, maybe the fat could keep you going, and because it's a lower flame, it's not going to catch anything else on fire. And my understanding is it's self-sustaining.
Yeah.
So it doesn't need a bunch of air.
But how fast until the person dies? Does the person die instantly, or are they slowly burning from the inside out while your fat like disintegrates?
I've never heard of a report of spontaneous human combustion where people downstairs heard the person screaming and went up to
you
see.
would think it'd be pretty audible.
Yeah. So something's going on, whether it's seconal or overconsumption of alcohol that maybe makes them pass out, or
there was a lot of vices, surprisingly. A lot of these people were either heavy smokers or drinkers.
But also, I mean,
dirty heathens.
It's easy to say that there's a lot of vices, but in the history of humans in the last couple hundred years, that's basically all we do is drink and smoke in a lot of cases.
If you're going to condense human history down to one sentence, sure. I mean, they drank and smoked.
At least in the Western world, at least in the developed parts of the world, there was a lot of drinking and smoking going on.
Have you ever had hookah, my friend? Or
I have not. We've discussed this like 120.
There's one sitting right there. We really just need to light that up. If we ever started filming these episodes, I would 100% have a hookah the entire time and just be puffing away on that bad boy.
That's a lot.
We'd get demonetized every episode.
Not if you had tobacco.
Yeah.
Okay.
We would still get demonetized. It's fine. I was
totally waiting to see what would come out of your mouth. I expected something more substantial than
Well, that happens sometimes.
So do you have a theory you're leaning toward, the devil or something?
No. I gotta tell you, I have no idea what this is. I have no theories on it. Everything sounds like it could be, but could also not be, and it just eats away at me. So if you've heard something and you're a listener of this show and you would like to share that with us on what you think spontaneous human combustion is, I don't care what it is. I don't care if it's a crazy, scientific thought, or if you think God is cursing people. I just want to hear your thoughts on things. Okay?
I have one other little tidbit that I looked up.
Okay.
And it's about fat as fuel, so the wick effect.
Okay. Is that what I just read?
I don't feel like you read this part.
Okay.
An average adult has 10 to 20% body fat, more in some cases.
Okay, shots fired. Yeah, we get it, guys.
Listen,
we can't always work out all the time, damn it.
Which is highly flammable once liquefied. A single kilogram of fat can release about 9,000 calories of energy, plenty to sustain a fire.
Okay.
And the pig experiment, I'm glad you threw that in there, because that was kind of convincing.
Yeah, a little bit, that one. That's why it's probably the one that people lean towards the most.
You're still going to struggle with how it started.
Yes, that is going to eat everyone alive.
But I remember maybe in the movie Backdraft many years ago. You ever heard of that movie?
Yes.
I feel like they talked about like fire being like a living thing in that movie. And I don't think like we like to set things on fire, especially boys, but
Sexist.
I don't think we really understand, most of us, what fire really is, or how it works and how it starts and what can start it. Like we know, a match, a lighter, it's lightning, but there's a lot of things going on around us we don't pay attention to. And if it doesn't happen very often, we're not going to pay attention to it. We'll be like, oh, he was watching The Twilight Zone and the next morning he was burnt to a crisp.
Wildest
Connected?
One. Wildest story for sure. And this is something that I forget about happens after I'm done talking about it for like 3 years, and then someone will remind me, I'm like, oh yeah, sometimes people just erupt into flame and are reduced to ash on the ground. Weird.
It is weird.
You like think about it, you're like, well, could that happen to me? And you're like, yeah, it could. Yeah, it could. Yeah, it could happen to anyone. What if it happened on this podcast right now?